They were sisters. Not just sisters, but identical twins. So alike it was as if one soul had been split in two. To the outside world, they were silent, mute. Not a word, not a whisper escaped their lips. Teachers, doctors, even their own parents thought them unreachable. But behind closed doors, the silence twisted into something else. In the stillness of their bedroom, the twins whispered in a frantic secret code, a language no one else could understand, a language that became their prison, a pact that became their curse, and a silence that would one day end in death. This is the haunting story of the Silent Twins. Welcome to Mystery Trails, where we follow the hidden paths of history and uncover the darkest secrets humanity leaves behind. Tonight, we unravel one of the most disturbing psychological mysteries of the modern age. Two sisters who shut out the world, locked themselves into silence, and bound their lives to a secret pact. A pact that only one would survive. June and Jennifer Gibbons were born on April 11th, 1963, in the small town of Haverford, West Wales. Their parents, Aubrey and Gloria, had emigrated from Barbados. The twins grew up in a Britain that was not always welcoming. The family was one of the few black households in their community. From their first days in school, the girls stood out. From birth, June and Jennifer seemed connected by an invisible thread. They walked together, played together, ate together. It was as if one body was shadowing the other. Teachers would later describe them as inseparable, unnervingly so. But by the time they entered school, something strange emerged. The twins refused to speak. Not to their classmates, not to their teachers, not even to their own parents. In public, they were silent. In private, they whispered. Inside the walls of their bedroom, June and Jennifer unleashed a rapid-fire language that no one else could decipher. Psychologists would later confirm it wasn't gibberish. It was their own dialect, a fusion of English and Barbadian Creole, bent and twisted into a code only they could understand. This language became their fortress, but it also became their cage. As the girls grew, their silence thickened. At home, they refused to eat unless they were alone together. At school, they would sit motionless, staring down at their desks, ignoring even direct questions. Psychologists tried to intervene. Speech therapists attempted to coax words from them. Nothing worked. They remained silent to the outside world, but behind closed doors, their notebooks filled with endless writing. By their early teens, June and Jennifer had locked themselves in their bedroom, writing thousands upon thousands of pages. Their stories were not the cheerful imaginings of ordinary teenagers. They were dark, violent, and grotesque, tales of obsession, death, crime, and madness. Neighbors recalled eerie glimpses of the girls moving through their small Welsh town. They walked in perfect unison, each step mirrored. When one stopped, the other stopped. When one turned her head, the others followed a heartbeat later, as though an unseen hand was controlling them both. It was uncanny, unnatural, like watching puppets pulled by invisible strings. And yet, beneath the perfect symmetry lurked something poisonous, a rivalry. Jennifer wrote in her diary words that would one day prove prophetic. One of us will have to die. There cannot be two. By their teenage years, the stories in their notebooks spilled into real life. June and Jennifer began committing petty crimes, shoplifting, vandalism, even arson. Entire buildings went up in flames, the night sky glowing with the fire of their private rebellion. Their bond had turned toxic. They fought violently, sometimes trying to strangle one another. And yet, no matter how brutal their clashes became, they remained inseparable, bound like two sides of the same curse. Eventually, the courts had seen enough. The twins were declared dangerous and sent to Broadmoor Hospital, one of Britain's most notorious high-security psychiatric institutions. Broadmoor was infamous, a place where some of the nation's most violent offenders and the criminally insane were confined. Inside Broadmoor's cold stone walls, the silence did not break. June and Jennifer continued their eerie ritual of speaking only to each other. Doctors observed their uncanny synchronicity, rising from chairs at the same instant, turning their heads in perfect time, chewing at identical rhythms. Staff whispered among themselves that the girls didn't need words at all, that they were communicating telepathically. The longer they remained, the more their writings darkened. June filled her diary with despair, describing herself as trapped in Jennifer's shadow. Jennifer, in turn, confessed to violent jealousy, admitting she sometimes fantasized about killing her sister just to breathe freely. Their bond was no longer one of companionship. It was a prison only death could unlock. Jennifer's diary revealed the final truth. We have decided. One of us must die. There cannot be two. Without my death, there can be no life for her. Over time, the pact became reality. The twins both seemed to accept it, June with silent dread, Jennifer with a kind of eerie calm. In March of 1993, after nearly 12 years locked inside Broadmoor, the twins were being transferred to a lower security facility. On the ride to their new institution, Jennifer laid her head gently on June's shoulder. Witnesses later recalled hearing her whisper, "At long last, we are free." Hours later, Jennifer was dead. No drugs in her system, no signs of trauma, no poison. Her heart had simply stopped. Doctors were baffled. The cause of death was listed as sudden acute myocarditis, inflammation of the heart, but no clear reason was ever found. It was as though Jennifer had willed herself into death. What happened next was even more disturbing. Almost overnight, June's silence lifted. The girl who had spent nearly 3 decades speaking to no one suddenly opened her mouth and spoke with ease. To doctors, to journalists, to complete strangers. When asked why her sister had to die, June's answer was chilling in its simplicity. We had made a pact. She gave her life for me. To this day, no one knows the truth. Was Jennifer's death a tragic coincidence? A psychosomatic collapse brought on by years of psychological torment? Or was it something darker? A psychic bond so strong it reached beyond the limits of life and death? What is certain is this: June and Jennifer Gibbons remain one of the most haunting mysteries in psychological history. Two sisters who shut out the world, locked themselves into silence, and sealed their fate with a pact written in whispers. Even now, if you listen closely enough, some say you can still hear the faint, frantic language of the silent twins. What do you think happened to the silent twins? Was Jennifer's death purely medical, or something supernatural? And could their bond truly have been strong enough to kill? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys down the darkest of mystery trails.